Good afternoon, everybody. This is the Town of Dewey Beach Monthly Town Council and public hearing. It's being held here at the Dewey Beach Life Saving Station as well as via Zoom. With that, I'd like to open this meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. As you know, today is May 15th, 2026, 3 o'clock. Today is the official start of our parking season as May 15th. With that, I'll go through the roll call. Commissioner Bauer.
Present.
Commissioner Jasinski.
Here.
Commissioner Givings.
Here.
Commissioner Persinger.
Here.
And Mayor Stevens is here. So all present. Item D, can I have a motion to adopt the agenda? With
Yeah, I'd like to propose that we move item K to, it would be item C, and then move everything else down.
K to C?
Yes.
got it.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Can I have a motion for the approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next is for any public comment. How we do things here is if it's not an agenda item and you would like to have a public comment, please come up, give your name, your address, and your comment.
Yes, my name is Lynn Meyer. My address is 2 Van Dyke Street, Unit 4. And I would like to comment on bonfires. I've been here before about that, you may remember. But what I'd like to do is request that the council add additional restrictions and guidelines to the bonfire guidelines as they are written. I have looked at them and I have found what I feel to be holes. Also, I would like the council to require the town to monitor bonfires. Pretty much once they are set, they are just left and hopefully cleaned up and hopefully are safe. And being beachfront, I have seen so many times the bonfires looking like they could be extremely hazardous, and I have called and I have gotten response, but if I wouldn't have been there, many times the units are empty. People rent, the owners aren't there, have second homes. So it's important that somebody does monitor. When I was looking at the current guidelines for this year, attention is paid to achieving permits, for finding vendors, for finding wood if you want to do it yourself, and considerable verbiage was made about cleaning up the bonfires, which is very important for our environment. But what was lacking from last year was the distance from the bottom of the dune. And if the tide is high, people may very well, if they're setting their own bonfire, and if there is no restriction, set the bonfire right at the dune fence and very close to the dead plant life on the dune. And there is always, even when we have adequate rainfall, there is always dead material on the dune. So that I would like to see, that distance from the dune, which in the past has been 25 feet, reinstated. In addition, there was a paragraph in red at the bottom of the bonfire suggestions, and the first one was concerning the speed of the wind, and that bonfires should be closed or not allowed to be built if the wind speeds are over 20 miles an hour, and that's a good idea. But it is way more important to consider the direction of the wind. If the wind is from the northeast, east, or southeast, it will be blowing smoke and sparks across the dune and into homes on the other side of the dune. Bonfire smoke is harmless for people, harmful for people to breathe, especially people with any kind of respiratory problem. And sparks, of course, can start a secondary fire. So we have to make sure that the smoke and the sparks do not reach inland away from the ocean. A wind directly from the north or from the south is blowing, hopefully, the smoke and the sparks into harmless areas. So I would like to see that restriction put into the bonfire requirements. It's very easy to monitor. Our cell phones, all of us have a weather app. You scroll down and there is a wind direction telling you. And if the wind happens to be from the east, and in the summer it often is not, in fact, most often is not from the east, it is a simple matter of canceling those bonfires. Well, I don't know how simple it is for you to do. You've got to find the people that you need to find. But if the wind should shift well after the bonfire is made, then somebody needs to go and shut it down as quickly as possible, because it has become dangerous to all of us. And also there was in that paragraph in red ink, the fact that the town could shut down bonfires or not permit bonfires with other wind conditions. But an attorney friend of mine mentioned to me that unless the restrictions are specific, they cannot be enforced.
Ms. Meyer, we will, thank you for your comments. It's, we're over the 3-minute mark, but we will take a look at this even further. We will.
Okay, all right.
You got it.
So, but I do have 2 more comments to make, if I may. And one is about the Delaware Beach ban. Bonfires are not included unless they are 27 cubic feet or more. So that is another thing that the town needs to check, are these bonfires bigger than the 27 cubic feet? And then another thing, that statewide clean air, there are clean air days. And very rarely is Dewey considered not having clean air. But there is a website on DENREC where you can track whether the clean air is clean. And if it is not considered clean, it is against the law, statewide against the law, to have a bonfire. And so Dewey has to follow that and enforce
Duly
not
noted.
having them.
Thanks,
Okay,
thank you, Ms.
that's all
Myers. I
have to
appreciate it.
say.
Thank you, Lynn.
Anyone else here for public matter? Mr. Montgomery?
State your name, where you're from.
Steve Montgomery from the Starboard Restaurant, 2009 Coastal Highway. I just, every year we come to do this here. Starboard is well known for our famous VIP card program, and a few years ago we turned it into a fundraiser for our local fire department. We all know, maybe everyone doesn't know, but I appreciate how much the fire department does here in Dewey. You saw them out here today filling planter boxes for the Dewey and Bloom boxes. They're here at all times taking care of our town, and they're volunteer people. So this was a wonderful thing. We started and raised money. It's growing and growing. People are really excited by using this as an avenue to donate to this. More than half the people that get these VIP cards probably never use them to get in a line at the Starboard, because they're not coming to the Starboard at 11 o'clock at night. So it's become a really neat avenue to people to donate from our town to the fire department. As it grew, we thought this year we would mix it up and give a partial payment to the town of Dewey as well, so that Dewey could use it. This is a town with no property taxes. We all know that. Got a lot of things going on, a lot of things to support. Our police are doing an amazing job, been replacing so many things, have equipment supply needs endlessly. So we wanted to give some of the money to the town of Dewey to use for police equipment and things that the chief needs. So I'm just gonna grab a picture with the town manager and the chief, along with Chuck for the fire department. It's $25,000 we're donating to the town of Dewey Beach, and it's $87,638 for the Rehoboth Fire Department. So it's quite a fundraiser that it's grown into, so we're really excited to, kind of stupid we didn't start it 25 years ago, but at least the last 3 or 4 years, it's gone really well.
So you made $110,000 on cards with no value.
Yes, we did.
That's amazing.
Do you need one?
Okay. I'm never out that late, you know that.
You want to do Chuck first? I have one.
I have one too.
Hey,
Thank you.
can you take, Chuck has to be in the picture.
Chief?
He's got to do his first.
Mayor, stoop down, would you mind?
That's good, thank you.
Is that the sound I hear?
Oh, didn't bounce, that's good.
Go deposit.
Go check.
We did work hard, it took us 3 days to raise all this money.
That's right.
At the Starboard,
You're out there collecting.
while drinking crushes. I was there.
Yeah, you know what I wanted to say, this is for all my jaywalking tickets back and forth. I'm getting in trouble for that joke.
Thank you.
Thanks, Monty.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Monty.
Monty.
So meeting in River Bridge, you guys just got the power out.
Unbelievable. All right, anyone else here for public comment for non-agenda items? All right, we're going to move on. Reports, committee reports. Commissioner Gibbons.
The Finance Investment Committee met on May 6th. And first, it's going to be covered later, but we did have 2 volunteers from our committee to serve on the Comprehensive Plan Committee, so let you know that we are participating there. The Brown Advisory Report has been posted for everybody to review. There has been a period of volatility, no kidding, but generally we're doing well. The committee had much discussion about the investment policy and the current management through Brown, and they are wondering if perhaps there should be an RFP for another advisory team to be considered to manage the investments for the town. They also realize that they need to have everybody on the committee review the current investment policy before moving forward, but that is an item on the agenda for me to bring this up to discuss.
Okay, we'll have that later.
That's all I got.
Commissioner?
Infrastructure Committee, I can't remember the date, but they met, they forwarded the resiliency funding approval back to us. We have a new chair, Cindy Souza. I don't know if I announced that last time or not, but Cindy Souza is our new chair, and thanks to her for agreeing to lead the committee. We always need people willing to put time in.
Commissioner Barrow?
Marketing's been hard at work involving themselves in selling bricks. So the Walk of Fame displays that are all over town, I think they've been helpful. Kate, how many were you up to now?
Geez.
It was 300 and some the other day.
Yeah, I want to say
Couple
we're
weeks
probably
ago.
around 340, maybe.
So it's coming along, and you know, everybody's starting to come to town now, so I hope that the pace picks up. As many as we can sell, that's helping to buy furniture and everything else, all the other essentials we're gonna need, so.
Great.
Do we have a capacity?
2,000.
Thank you.
If we got 1,000, that's great too.
Yeah, I mean, and the town manager and I spoke earlier this week, when we complete town hall phase 1, we're gonna have them put in the bricks, knowing that once people see it as a halfway, and then you'll have the opportunity to finish it off in the end. But I think if you see it, you'll actually be pretty impressed.
Yes.
Commissioner Persinger.
Code and Charter has not met. They don't have a meeting scheduled at this point. We're going to talk a little bit about the Comprehensive Development Committee in just a few moments. And the only thing I would mention also is P&Z has a meeting, Planning and Zoning has a meeting scheduled for June the 3rd at 5 p.m. And I think it's always important to mention them because we refer things to them and they come back to us. They consider some important zoning issues and come back to us with recommendations. So just you can make a note in that. That's it.
Great. Thank you, sir. Town manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, everybody. Memorial Day and summer is coming very quickly. Our team's hard at work. The front office has been selling parking passes and business licenses, and Sheena could talk about a little bit about that and how many we've sold so far. But finance, the police department, parking. Today's the first day they're out there. Of course, parking started at 9 a.m. this morning, and it goes until 2 a.m. And of course, Mondays are free between the hours of 5 and 11 for movie night, except on holidays. So I'd like to remind everybody about that. Kate's bringing up some photos right now. The new town hall is moving along. We're on schedule. A lot of the IT installations going in right now. I don't know, Kate, if you already went by the one with all the wiring in the one room or not, but the amount of wire is just unbelievable they have to run. That's our electronic room right there where all the power comes in the building, where it can switch from generator back to regular power. I mean, the amount of wiring that's going is just unbelievable. But we are on schedule, and we are on budget, and we are moving forward. They want us in there by like August 1st. That's what they're saying. I think I'd like to be in there September 15th. Why? Because it's going to be very hard trying to move our police department and parking folks and everybody over there while we're still doing summer. But we'll see, and I'll keep updating you as we come along. We had a great turnout for the Doodles. You can see there we had about 300 dogs for the Doodles, 300 for the Goldens. These dogs are well behaved. Sometimes they're better than some of the folks that we have visiting in our town. Great organization by both these groups. You can see they're very organized. They bring their own baggies for the dogs. They bring their own trash cans for the dogs. They just do a really good job. And we had a big turnout for both groups, and we love to see them here. The town provides water. We bring a bladder down there. We put out water troughs, and the dogs go ahead and just hit that. That's from the Goldens there. But it was just a real success this year, as you can see. Also, what I'd like to talk about next is Red, White, and Bloom. That's going to be a sponsored event by Dewey and Bloom, the police department, and by the town. It's going to be over on Reed and McKinley Street on July 5th between 9:30 and 11:30. It's going to be for the kids. It's going to, I've contacted DelDOT. We're going to do bicycle safety there. They're going to have some face painting. I think they're going to have a moon bounce, and then they're going to have a bike parade. Police are accompanying us with their bike folks, and then they're also going to just close off part of the street temporarily while this is going on. This is a really positive thing for the town of Dewey, and also with the bicycle safety, we can't go wrong on that. DelDOT, I met with DelDOT, Peter Haig, who's in charge of safety for DelDOT, just to kind of talk about, is there any more options out there on the crosswalks? We went back and forth. There's a couple things we were kicking around, but he said really, when it comes to signage and lights, Dewey's done and DelDOT's done about as much as we can do on lights and signage. You know, we went through the whole thing about putting LED lights into the road at the crosswalks. He said it won't work because of our winters up here. They're not going to let us do red lights where the yellow beacons are. I asked him about a vertical lift of the road, so when you approach the crosswalks, it would go up, go across the crosswalk, and then go back down. He said that's a real issue for fire equipment and emergencies. And if you've been out here, you know many ambulances go up and down Route 1 to go to BB from down south. There were a couple other options that we're talking about. He needs to run those by DelDOT to see if we could actually do them. We don't have approval to do them now, so he's going to get back with them. But it was a positive meeting overall for the crosswalks. Our maintenance team's done a great job. The lines are down. We had about 12 we had to go back and redo, talking to the property owners, and that includes driveway markings, fire hydrants, and our handicap markings. Dew mats are going to start next week. We're going to start do maintenance on those. We're going to hold on selling any more dew mats as of right now. If they've got the order in and you've paid, you're good. But going forward, we're getting so many dew mats on the dunes when we have our four-wheelers go over them, whether they're the police or the lifeguards, when we have the actual advertised mats, it pulls them apart sometimes. The other problem is we take orders all the way through, so if somebody orders one in April, we may not get it till June, and the people are like, hey, how come my mat's not out there? So we want to go back and reset the dates, like you have to have all your orders in by January 15th. That way we place the order, they come in March, and our folks can start installing them in April. Right now, we have some mats that are going to come in June and July. We're going to have to break the mats apart, the 25-foot length, put those in, and reattach them. And so we just have to come up with a better system. The cost of the mats to us are $640. To get a mat shipped is $240. That's $900, and we're charging $1,000. So we're making $100 on each mat, but by the time we throw in our maintenance and the amount of work they're doing, we're actually losing time and money on that. New information boards are out at each one of the dunes. They're a little bit more organized. Nice job by Kate on those. We talked about parking already. New kiosks out in front of the town hall. It takes Google, it takes Apple Pay, it does tap, and it does credit cards. We will not be doing cash, but it does all those for parking. And you can also do your dog licenses there. So that's huge. That's the only kiosk we have in town, and that's the way it's going to stay for right now, because we've really gone to Park Mobile through most of the town. There are some meters where we like turnover near restaurants. There's still some meters in those areas, but right now we're going to stay with just one kiosk in town. I met the new marina manager. So both marinas were bought by a company called Southern Marinas. That's Rehoboth Marina and Blue Yacht, which used to be Pierpoint. They're bought, as far as I know right now, there aren't going to be any changes, but that settlement should be coming in the next week or so on both those properties. And again, a reminder, anything from the bulkhead out into the water is Denrex. Anything from the bulkhead in belongs to the town. I want to thank the Rehoboth Fire Company for filling the flour containers today. They brought one of their tanker trucks in and did that. Thank you so much. That helps out Dewey and Bloom. Lifeguards will start on the 23rd. Jim Dedes and I and Dave Naples will be meeting with FEMA, the community assistant visit that they gave us back. And then, of course, they weren't funded, so we couldn't talk to them again. We sent them the results. We're meeting with them on the 20th to go over the 23 properties that we provided the information on, and go over those and see what they see from the paperwork we turned into them. Dewey and Bloom added 2 more boxes, one on Carolina and one down on Chesapeake. They look good, so as soon as you come in to Dewey on King Charles, you start seeing our boxes, and it really looks good coming in. I would like to say something. We can't have signs on sidewalks. Restaurants, businesses, you cannot put your signs out on the public sidewalk. We'd ask that you just move those back. We don't want signs on the center island unless they're approved by the town. And then people have been still putting up signs on private property that say don't park, tow-away zone. We've had some that say restaurant employee parking only. We had one that said volleyball captain parking only. I would ask that those aren't there, but if they're on private property, we have a hard time. We cannot go on that property and take those signs down. But I would ask folks really not to put those up. Some really good news coming out of U.S. Senator Blunt Rochester's office. She supported our request for a new police car, which is about $94,000, and $50,000 for a security fence around the new town hall. It went out of her office, and now it's with the Appropriations Committee. Of course, this, as you know, on a grant like this, it could take over a year to 2 years to actually get it approved. Representative McBride, they've supported the $2.3 million flood mitigation project on Van Dyke Street, the 3.3 project for the fire companies. That's also going to the Appropriations Committee. And a special thanks to Senator Huxtable and Representative Claire Hall. They have gotten $45,000 out of CTF funding to help us with our Dickinson Street mitigation flooding project. But we can't start the project until actually the Secretary of DelDOT signs off on it. We're still waiting. Originally, it was going to be done this week, but now I pushed it to September so we can get the $45,000. So I just want to thank all our committee members, our Board of Adjustment folks, and the commissioners for all the hard work and extra time that you do. I'd like to remind everybody, none of our folks are paid compared to some of the other towns, but none of our folks are actually paid. And with that, pending any questions, I'm finished.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bill. Any questions for the town manager? Chief?
Hello, everyone. Most of you know, or if you don't know, this whole week has been Police Week, so there's been a lot of events and activities going on. Our Sergeant Colin Schmidt, participated in the Police Unity Tour, Chapter 9, which is Maryland, Delaware. There were 87 riders. They rode 254 miles, starting in Philadelphia, ending at the National Law Enforcement Memorial. And that's also a fundraising ride that helps ensure that every law enforcement officer that's fallen across the country name gets put on that wall, and also money goes to help all the family survivors of a fallen law enforcement officer. So that was incredible that he did that. That was a 5-day event. We also attended Back the Blue event on Tuesday at Troop 7. Every year we meet them, a bunch of other agencies, and they give us lots of goodies to take back to the station for everyone to enjoy, to show their appreciation of law enforcement. We also, on Wednesday, we attended the memorial service at the Sussex Tech High School on Wednesday to honor the fallen officers. We've been partnering with the school for the last several years. And actually this year, one of our seasonals is graduating as a senior through their criminal justice program, and he'll be working for us this summer. And we also had a dispatcher opening, and we've just hired a female that's getting ready to graduate from their communications program. So it's a really good program for us to get seasonal hires from. So that worked out very well. So today was a great day. We graduated our 14 seasonal police officers. They've spent the last 5 weekends doing all their training and to get their certification, and they were sworn in today by the mayor, and you're going to start seeing them as early as next week out on the roadways. The next 2 weeks, they'll be doing their 40 hours of bike training. So for a police officer, even though they're a seasonal, in order for them to ride a bicycle, they have to take a 40-hour mountain bike police course. So we're gonna do two courses of those so we can get as many seasonals on bikes as we can. Because the great thing about the bikes around town, they can get around in and out of traffic and get to calls faster, and they can cover more ground, so we really like that. I was able to purchase a police e-bike for PFC Dowling through our donation fund and our store funds. And he is the certified bike instructor that trains all our seasonals. And that will get him around town faster, and we're taking his bike that he was normally using and putting that in the seasonal bikes. So we'll have 5 that can ride at one time, which is great for us. We did purchase our new vehicle with the capital expenditures that was approved, and it's still being outfitted, so it could take, unfortunately, probably another month to get that done. We're all set for Memorial Day weekend. We have Milton coming to assist, Milford, the fire marshals, and Date, seasonals, and all hands on deck approach like we do every year, so we're all ready to go for that. I wanted to go over some, since we did have the pedestrians that were struck 2 weeks ago. Lieutenant Dempsey pulled 5 years worth of data. From January 1st, 2021 to May 8th, 2026, we had 122 collisions resulting in property damage and 39 collisions involving personal injury accidents. So 9 out of the 39 personal injury accidents were involving pedestrians being struck while using the crosswalks. In 2021, we had 2 struck. 22, we had 0. In 23, we had 2. 24, we had 3 struck. 25, we had 1. And in 26, we had 2, which is obviously, hopefully we don't have any more this year that we're hoping, but I think that gives a better picture of exactly what's going on, because a lot of people think a lot of people are getting run over and killed in the town of Dewey, and that's just not the case. We've had 9 in 5 years.
Not killed,
Not killed, hit.
injured.
I'm sorry.
Struck.
I
Yes,
turned
just
that
I wanted-
around.
I just
We've
wanted to-
had
for the
9
record, it's-
injured in
Yes.
crosswalk accidents, not killed.
I knew what you meant.
Yes.
Hey, Chief, if I could just comment, DelDOT says during the summer, we have about 20,000 cars going in each direction on Route 1. That's 40,000 cars a day approximately, and we have sometimes over 25,000 people in town. So you figure at least 5,000 to 10,000 of those folks a day are trying to cross Route 1. So when you look at those numbers, no accident, any type of accident's a good accident, none of them at all. But if you look at the number of people we have in town with the main highway going through it, we're not Rehoboth, we're not Bethany, this is a main highway going through the middle of our town. I mean, I think we're doing the best we can. We really are.
Our stats for the month of April. We had 348 calls for service, and I'd like to remind everybody that does include traffic stops. We had 42 criminal charges placed. Written traffic citations / warnings were 273. We had 196 traffic stops. We had 365 hours spent on traffic enforcement hours. I often hear complaints, people saying that we're not running traffic. We're running traffic. If you look at 365 hours in a month of April, that's a lot of traffic. So we do run a lot of traffic. We had 10 accidents in town, 27 parking citations, 0 civil citations, and we had 5 DUI arrests. I have noticed an increase in our DUI arrests over the last year. And part of that is our excellent enforcement by our police officers, especially our younger officers, that are really doing a lot of DUI enforcement. They're doing an excellent job in that area. So that's the end of my report. Any questions for me?
Any questions, Chief?
It was a busy April.
We've been very busy.
For April.
May's been very busy too.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Chamber.
Hi everyone, I'm Caitlin Cheney from the Rehoboth Dewey Chamber of Commerce. I just have a few short updates for you.
Dewey Rehoboth.
It's the Dewey.
Dewey Rehoboth Chamber.
Oh, my gosh.
In even years, it's Dewey Rehoboth.
Know
In
your
odd
audience.
years, it's Rehoboth Dewey.
Yes, I'm new here, so you know, I have
It's all right.
So this week our intern started. Her name's Carissa, and she's our intern is who mainly helps out with the movies and bonfires on the beach. So she started this week. She's getting up to speed. The movies start on June 15th, and the full schedule is on our website with all the movies that are showing. We're also in the process of recruiting volunteers for that. So if anyone's interested in volunteering, knows someone who would like to volunteer, have them reach out to the chamber. I'd love to talk to them. We are also lining up restaurants and sponsors for Restaurant Week, which is June 7th through the 12th. All that info is also on our website, so if anyone's interested, they haven't signed up yet. Right now I have like 23 restaurants across both towns signed up, so that's really all I have, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we're just giving you grief on the whole Rehoboth Dewey thing, for now. All right, move on to open public hearing. Item A, public hearing regarding application submitted by Christopher Moody for the Lions Club located at 115 McKinley Avenue, Dewey Beach, Delaware, for temporary expansion of the premise for the Bike to the Beach event to be held June 19th, 2026. So if you have any comments?
So this is the second year that they've had it. Last year they were over at the Block Party Hotels. This year they've gone back over to the Lions Club. They've hit all the right groups: Sussex County Paramedics, Rehoboth Fire Company, and I'm sure I'm missing a couple, but they've hit all the right groups. The chief and I have reviewed the plan, and as long as they stick to it, we don't foresee any problems.
Okay. Anyone here from the public would like to make comment? Come on up, state your name.
I'm Carl Sylvester from Bike to the Beach and at Impact Network. And if you guys have any questions, just please let me know. I'm happy to answer.
I'm Ben Daly from the Impact Network as well.
It's good to see you again.
It seems like this one doesn't involve a left turn across the street.
That's right. Everything will be on the right side of the road, coming all the way from Airport Road. And it's just on Route 1 all the way down.
Make it safer.
Okay,
Just
great.
wanted that public.
Yep, absolutely.
Is anyone here, other than the guys with Bike to the Beach, want to discuss this, or online, Kate?
If anyone online wants to make comment, if you can unmute yourself. Seeing none.
All right, I think we're good for right now.
All right.
All right,
Thank you.
Is there a question? Oh, question, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
There's a checklist in the application form for a temporary expansion of premises, patron premises. All of them were initialed except for the one about a $500 fee. Is that something that the town is waiving?
No, we're not waiving it.
Oh, okay, so that is going to be it. The other thing I just had a question about was, it says portable toilets will be covered by separate tenant area so as to avoid eyesore to neighbors. But when I read through it, it looked like they're just going to be put at the rear of the event, which is, I think, toward the ocean side. But aren't they facing some condominiums back there?
I mean, we were planning on putting like pop-up tents over
Okay,
them,
so
not
they will be.
enclosing it, but yeah, just
Okay.
covering it for the neighbors, yeah.
Okay, that's fine. That's all I have.
Great. Thanks, guys. Item B, public hearing regarding a draft resolution approving the use of infrastructure funds for a town resiliency study. Commissioner Persinger.
Okay, a resiliency plan for the town was a project developed by the Resiliency and Sustainability Committee. And before I forget, I neglected to say that they do have a meeting scheduled on May 28th at 5 p.m. And they're a very important committee as well. So I wanted to make sure that I noted that for, because the chairman is here as well as one of the important committee members from that group as well. We've had several discussions about this project. We think it's an important project to better understand the risks that the town faces from climate-related effects, and to develop some, or at least some understand what the strategies are that might be productive in helping us to mitigate those risks. Other municipalities, many other municipalities have resiliency plans like this. And I should note also that we're going to talk about this a little bit later, that we'll be developing our 10-year comprehensive development plan, which is a state-required plan that has to be submitted at least every 10 years and virtually really updated every year. There are some new resiliency requirements for comprehensive development plans, and those are to be consistent with Delaware Climate Action Plan, which has a big focus on resiliency. So, we think this is an appropriate thing to do. If we understand our risks and the potential strategies that may be productive, we think we'll be in a better shape to compete for grant money to hopefully be able to pursue some of those strategies. So as Commissioner Jasinski noted earlier, if we wanted to use infrastructure money, we have to go to the Infrastructure Committee. We did get unanimous approval from them, And in order for us, as a final step, to use money from the infrastructure account, we have to hold a public hearing. So that's the purpose of the public hearing today. And so I would invite any comments that anyone might have about this.
Anyone here from the room? Anyone online, Kate?
If anyone wants to comment on item B, if you can unmute yourself.
Okay.
None.
We'll move on to item C for the public hearing.
Okay.
Public he-
Hold on, Marcia checks.
Marcia, do you want to comment on the town resiliency study?
No, I'm good.
Okay. C, public hearing regarding a draft ordinance to amend Chapter 1 definitions of the municipal code to redefine front buildable area, Chapter 185 zoning to prohibit the placement of swimming pools and hot tubs in the front buildable area. Commissioner Persinger.
1 second. This draft ordinance that we'll be talking about today first was introduced by the Planning Commission in early March. They sent the ordinance to us for discussion. We discussed it in March 20th of this year. And just because of our process, we had to refer that back to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a public hearing and recommendations from the commission back to us. We now have that. The original ordinance that was developed actually was very broad. It addressed all accessory structures in the buildable footprint within on any given lot. So the buildable footprint is the area in which you can actually build your house. It's defined by the setbacks the required setbacks that are listed in the town code. The original version of this would have banned any accessory structure or use that's prohibited in the required front yard, which is the area from the front setback to the front property line, within that buildable area. And it also defines front buildable area, which is basically the part of the buildable area which is in front of the primary structure. So anything in front of your house that extends from the house to the front setback line, that's the part of the front buildable area. So the original version of this ordinance would have prohibited any accessory structure within that area. When the Planning Commission discussed this, they decided to narrow consideration just to swimming pools, which I believe also includes hot tubs, but hot tubs are specifically referenced in the draft ordinance. And I need to pull up that version of the draft ordinance. One second. I have. So what the ordinance does, first of all, it defines the front buildable area, which is the portion of a lot lying between the foremost facade of the primary structure and the required front yard setback line, excluding the required front yard itself. The front buildable area includes any part of the buildable envelope situated forward of the foremost facade of the primary structure. So that definition would be inserted into the section of all the definitions in the town code. The next part of it, of this draft ordinance, would amend section 185-51, which deals with accessory buildings and structures, and it would add a new sentence that says, in residential districts, no swimming pool or hot tub may be located within the front buildable area. So that is the essence of the ordinance.
Anyone here for public comment regarding pools in the front yard?
How does that affect any existing pools? Like we live in Seabreeze Village. It's an apartment complex, condo. We have a pool there. It's already been there. It's been there for 20 some odd years or whatever. How does that affect existing pools?
I don't think this particular ordinance really affects existing pools. We're talking about new construction. But we do have on the agenda a discussion item to talk about how existing pools would be regulated.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to speak, please.
Of course.
Thank you. Marcia Schick, 1430 Bayard. We submitted by email and through dropping off a petition of 47 or 48 names that are against this ordinance. I think most of them, these names were secured in the last 48 hours, and there are still names coming in. So I think it's important that you really think about this ordinance. It's definitely taking away property rights of people within their buildable footprint. And I think whether it's pools, hot tubs, or anything else, as you can see by the survey question, it was clear this was about pools and hot tubs, and we still have 47 signatures in the last 48 hours of people who want to know that they have the right to do what they want to do in their buildable footprint and not have restrictions or a taking of property rights. And I think the mayor has alluded to that in previous meetings. I think it's the cart before the horse that we're passing an ordinance that we haven't had enough public comment on. You're absolutely restricting considerable property rights for owners who have invested a lot of money in their property. I think it deserves more public hearings and more noticing before you look at taking away property rights. And I do not think there's a definitive answer on those existing pools. So I think to put this ordinance in place and take months to think about a definitive answer on existing pools. I have some, condos have some, residential, commercial, and how that falls out, in all fairness, is truly the cart before the horse, because then those people, me, including everyone else, are not protected. If they have a pool collapse, we've had an opinion that the code does not grandfather these people in, or me, or anyone else. And so I'm just asking that you take more time. These ordinances have been critically rushed. And I think given the fact that we have 47 names and counting, there are still names being added to this petition against this. I think it's enough controversy in this particular ordinance where you are taking away the rights of what someone has to build within their buildable footprint to have a vote tonight. I think the showing of the number of names we have on this in the last 48 hours is enough to give you pause, to take time, to notify the town what you're doing. It's a considerable taking of property rights. And I think it deserves a little more public hearing. I'm not saying yay or nay on it, but I certainly think given the response in 48 hours, it deserves a lot more public hearings, and it deserves a definitive answer on those of us who have existing pools, not after the fact, not after you do it, because if the condo that just spoke has a pool collapse, and this is not decided, and there's a legal issue, and they go without a pool, it's going to be pretty disastrous. So I think unless there's a timing issue that you have to do this today, it seems the responsible thing to do is have more public hearings on this, but before you take away people's property rights in their buildable footprint, and before you pass a code that does not have assurance to those people who have existing pools, condos, residential properties in the front of their house.
I concur on that answer, that response. Thank you.
We still don't know who he is.
Who just spoke?
Seabreeze, I believe.
From Seabreeze. I just need
Todd
your name. I'm
Todd
sorry?
Hudson, Todd Hudson, Seabreeze. I obviously we have an existing pool, and if something were to happen to that pool, it's a pretty valuable part of our organization, and we'd like to be able to modify that to if something were to happen to that pool, that it would not become like a hole in the ground, if you will, which becomes an extremely eyesore expense to us. So I would agree with that. I would like to be able to make sure that we were able to keep that pool from now until eternity, if you will. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Kate, anyone else, public comment on via the web?
Yeah, Mayor, can I first state that we're going to give everyone a maximum 5 minutes?
Yep.
And it looks like Dave Moskowitz is
Great.
next.
May
Dave, go
I
ahead.
ask- yes, David Moskowitz, Dewey Beach. When this was going about planning and zoning, we both had the assistant town manager, Jim Deeds, and also the solicitor, Fred Townsend, say, don't worry, you're grandfathered. We asked the town twice to put it in writing, and they wouldn't. So what's being said earlier by Commissioner Persinger, who I asked, can you have item K before this item? Because it's creating disaster because the zoning code does not address our pool. And you'd be, like, as Marsha said, I agree completely with Marsha Shook and Todd Hudson. You're banning people's properties, you're banning stuff, and then you're gonna look at the existing pools and what happens. And it's not just about rebuild, it's also about repair. If something breaks, there's all sorts of ordinances that have been put in place the last few years, but then you're putting this on top, it's gonna create a disaster. So it would make sense to delay this ordinance and look at K. I mean, I'm against this ordinance, but there's two things. One can be against this ordinance and also against it as well till you look at K because all the existing pools are in limbo. And as Marsha said, it could be for months. And it's not just if there's a hurricane because the town changed its position recently. It's about, can you repair the pool and can you rebuild? So, I mean, I think Marsha said it great and also Todd, but I mean, last night the town spent about $30,000 to go against the pool. They lost at the Board of Adjustment. They don't need to spend more money. The prudent thing would be to look at agenda item K and then figure where to go. What's the rush?
Thank you, Dave.
Do you want me to comment at all?
You don't need to.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Did anyone else on Zoom wish to comment on item C? If you can unmute yourself so we can see you. Seeing none.
Could I, I want to, just,
of course.
just a quick note. We did move item K up above item C in the regular agenda. This is the public hearing, so there was really no way to effectively address item K before we had the public hearing on item C.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I just add a comment on that. I didn't have my 3 minutes. Even if you move item K up, it's months before you have a public hearing on it. It goes to the board, planning and zoning. It has to come back to you. We're talking 3 to 4 months. And that doesn't not in any way give protections to the people who have current pools. And again, I don't understand the rush on this when you have equal favor and equal opposition with opposition growing. I think the prudent, responsible way to deal with this is to have more public hearings.
Thank you, Marcia. Anyone else? All right, we're going to close public hearing, move on to the agenda items. Public comment will be taken for each item after town council discusses and prior to the vote being taken. All right, item A, discussion and possible action regarding an application submitted by Christopher Moody for the Lions Club located 115 McKinley Avenue, Dewey Beach, Delaware, for temporary expansion of premise for the Bike to the Beach event to be held on June 19th, 2026. The gentleman representing already spoke, and we already brought this up to public comment, but I'll give it, if anyone has any additional comments, going once.
Hey,
On Bikes to the Beach.
I'm on. Yeah,
You're
I'm
on, and you're also not muted, Marcia. Anyone else? Okay. Council. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, guys. Item B, discussion and possible action regarding draft resolution improving the use of infrastructure funds for the town resiliency.
Any comment?
Any comments, additional comments on that? Okay.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so K, we've asked to be moved up. So this is a discussion regarding a regulation of the existing pool structures. Commissioners may vote to refer this matter to a committee for further recommendations. Commissioner Persinger?
Yeah, I mean, we've gotten a couple of letters from one of the condo developments here. And I think it raised some interesting questions which were a little bit difficult to fully resolve by looking at our town code. We have tended to call an existing pool that doesn't meet all of the requirements as a non-conforming structure. And in fact, in our code, we don't define non-conforming structure. We only talk about non-conforming buildings or non-conforming uses. And maybe you could pigeonhole a pool which is non-conforming with all of the requirements into, it's a permitted use, but maybe you could pigeonhole it into a non-conforming use, but that's pretty awkward. I really think the code should be cleaned up so that if we're going to call something a non-conforming structure, we really should define that and know exactly what we're talking about. Pools clearly are structures. They are defined as they are included in the definition of structures in our town code. But there is a sentence toward the end of that definition of structure which says, for floodplain management purposes, a structure or building shall mean a walled and roofed building, including a gas or liquid storage tank that is principally above ground as well as a manufactured home. I had no clue what to think about that particular sentence when I first read it, but having thought about it some more, I think essentially what they're saying is that things like pools are simply not part of the National Flood Insurance Program. So why would so for floodplain management purposes, I think the notion here is that, not that you don't have to worry about them, but they're certainly not going to be subject to all of the requirements that a residential structure or other structure for that matter might be subject to. And gas or liquid storage tanks, I think, and I haven't verified this, are probably addressed somewhere in some of the FEMA regulations, and there was concern that those meet the FEMA requirements, and if there's a new installation or a replacement installation perhaps, you would need to make sure that those kinds of structures are elevated appropriately and to keep them out of floodwaters. So those are two issues that I came across. The other thing that was, stumbling across, it didn't seem that a pool structure was exempt from the requirement that if repairs and improvements total 50% of the market value of the structure, it would have to comply with all code requirements. Well, again, back to that final sentence in a definition of a structure, it seems to be included from floodplain management requirements, so it would not seem to be subject to that 50% requirement. We do also have in the code let's see if I can find that quickly. There is a section in the code which essentially says that if your property is damaged or destroyed by fire or storm or some other horrible thing that could affect your property, you have the right to rebuild that property just as it was before the damage to that property. So, if it's a non-conforming property that extends past some of the setback requirements or doesn't conform in some other ways, you would have the right to rebuild that property. The only exception is with respect to properties that are in the floodplain, and they are then subject to that 50% requirement. So if the cost of rebuilding your property exceeds 50% of the current market value of the property, then you would have to meet all of the requirements, the FEMA requirements and other code requirements in our town code. That's not the case, again, it's with respect to pools, according to my current interpretation of the language in the code. So I guess what I'm getting to is kind of as a bottom line here is I think we should make it clear in the code that, that a pool that doesn't conform to all of the requirements in the code, as well as other things that qualify as structures, that those should be defined as non-conforming structures. We should make that clear. And that we should emphasize in our code that there should be the ability to rebuild, repair, rebuild, whatever is necessary, if a structure like a pool suffers some sort of catastrophic damage, or the problems with repairs builds up over time so much so that the range of things that needs to be done to the pool structure means that you have to resurface it or replace some of the equipment. So that's the way I think the direction I think we should move in. I don't think it's really, the issue with respect to existing pools, I don't think is drastically affected by the ordinance that we just talked about, which would restrict, or would prohibit rather, swimming pools and hot tubs within the buildable, front buildable footprint area. We're really talking about now new structures there, and passing that ordinance, if we should suddenly have some sort of catastrophic event to an existing swimming pool, I don't think that we would necessarily be in a position of saying, because I don't think the code requires it specifically, that pool would have to meet all of the current requirements in the code. So let me stop there and see if there are any comments, questions, additional.
We'll put out to the public at first. Any comments on what Commissioner Persson just reviewed in terms of the pools?
I have a comment. Marcia Schick, I think we're talking a lot about, we're using a lot of words like I think, we think it won't, it seems like it won't, we believe it won't. But I think the issue is we have nothing in writing and we have nothing with clarity on the existing structures. And I think that's where we get in trouble with our code. Pools cost a minimum of $100,000 to $150,000 to construct a residential pool. A commercial pool, $300,000 to $500,000. Residential pools need to be pulled out if they're fiberglass probably every 10 to 12 years and completely repurchased and a new shell put in. They don't last long. Same with concrete pools. They can collapse, crack. And I think what you're saying is, and guys, I really don't understand it. When you have a lot of ifs, we're not sure, we think, do we have an attorney that has looked at this and put language in to give us all assurances that have pools? I don't think we should make code and pass code on we think, we suppose, we've looked at. I think what people have asked you is for something concrete in writing. And I think the fact that we haven't been able to do that gives great pause to pausing the enactment of this code until we have that. Again, it's kind of like the cart before the horse. And why don't we just let it go till next month and get all this in place for the people who want answers to this and want to know what they're exempt from and want it in writing and want it in the code so they have protections. I don't really see an issue with delaying this 1 month. I don't think there's any pool applications in town. I don't think anybody's putting in a pool application, but I do hear a lot of people that have concerns about the fact that we don't have answers to very expensive items, and also concerns that property owners feel it's a taking of property rights to tell them what they can or can't do inside their building footprint. So I'm just saying, what is the problem or resolve with delaying this for more public hearings, getting the answers for those people that have existing pools, and putting it on the agenda for next month when we have concrete answers?
Thank you, Marcia.
I have a question. So is it?
Kelly, you gotta, sorry.
Answer her question. Hi, Kelly Baxter. I have a question just to clarify. It's within the buildable or outside the buildable to the fence?
We're kind of mixing up two things here. We're really
Okay,
talking
the
about
previous
what we do
discussion.
about existing pools if there's a problem. If someone has a catastrophic event with respect to their existing pool, would they be able to rebuild that pool in exactly the same location?
And some
same
pools
configuration?
are in the buildable and some pools are outside the buildable.
There are
non-conforming.
clearly, there
They're
are some pools that are
non-conforming.
inside the buildable footprint, but what we do about that is really a separate agenda item. They're related in some sense, and some people are worried that the two are so closely related that we need to settle both issues before we settle one.
But just to be clear, right now, if you're building a home, you could not put it in the setbacks. You have to put it in your buildable area.
Okay, that's
Well,
how, and I am
in the front
about to
yard.
build a home, so.
So, but pools in backyards and side yards are permitted to be more proximate to the boundary lines than the buildable area would be in some cases. It depends on what your setbacks are, but there are provisions with regard to the locating of swimming pools that allows them to be nearer to a boundary line than the buildable envelope. permits.
Right, because they're allowed inside their yards, yes, yes.
All right, any comment or
I
questions?
think the gentleman here.
I'd just like to have one final comment. We have 47 names asking that we don't restrict what we do on our own property within our buildable footprint. Is there a number of people in support of restricting specifically item C in your buildable footprint? Because I think it's important that you hear in the last 48 hours, 47 people do not want any restrictions within their buildable footprint. These are $2 million land properties, 50 by 100. These are expensive properties, and people take a lot of guardianship to their property rights.
Thank you, Marcia. All right, council.
May I just add, it's Todd Hudson here. May I just add also to that, just to completely agree with Marcia on every comment. I just found out about this meeting like earlier this week, and so I've had zero time to even think or prep for this conversation. But at the same time, there are, especially as it relates to the existing pools, I appreciate Marcia's comment about the words if and we think and so forth. I think we'd all like to just have some clarity to know that if something catastrophic or just resurfacing or et cetera, that we have the ability to maintain the existing pool. And because, we rent and use that pool ourselves personally, and it's important to us, and we just don't want it to be, gone because of, a strike of a gavel, if you will. So, we'd like to be able to know that we have that ability to maintain that. So that's my final comment, I believe. Todd Hudson, thank you.
Thank you, Todd.
David, go ahead.
Yeah, David Moskowitz. First, I agree with what Commissioner Person just said. People want this to be settled together because to settle it separately makes no sense. And the thing is, if let's say we're in limbo for 6 months or so forth, and other people in limbo, if they're condos, you have to basically put on the sale, well, can't repair, replace. That would actually stop people from being able to sell or refi. As other people have said, we asked the town to put it in writing twice. It hasn't. There's no, it's like a lot of ifs. The legal guidance we have sought said that we wouldn't be able to do it. So, I mean, I would hope they're settled together. But right now you have all these people, as Marcia said, 48 people are in opposition of this. So, I mean, I don't see people for this. It would be prudent to take time and wait and make sure they're settled together so everyone knows what to expect.
Thank you, David. Kate, anyone else? All right. Just to confirm, this is a discussion. There's no gavel. There's no possible action.
Other than a referral.
Bob,
We may refer.
Bob, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I would. This is Bob Manning, Seabreeze Village, and I'd just like to clarify that it's going to be put in writing that our pool will be governed in. We've had the pool, it's a gated pool, it's a private pool, we've got a fence around, you need a code to get in. And I don't understand why nobody here is saying today that you have a pool, it'll be governed in, we're not going to touch your pool. Why is that not part of this? Why is that not being put in writing?
Thank you, Bob. All right. Council, Commissioner Purser gave a little bit of an overview. I have my own opinion, but I'll allow you guys to get first strike at it if you want to.
One thing that wasn't brought up is, as a matter of practice, I think the town has been pretty consistent in treating existing accessory structures that are destroyed or need major repair, of allowing that to happen even if they're non-conforming. In the north end, certainly a lot of people are doing that with fences, okay, that sit in the setbacks that have been brought up in recent hearings and whatnot. So from a matter of practice, the town has basically been doing what people want. I certainly feel that if people have an existing non-conforming structure on their property, that, maybe we could put some more formal language in the code, but Ken, we've been doing it anyway. I mean, does anyone object to the town continuing to allow existing non-conforming structures to be repaired or replaced if they're destroyed by a fire?
Commissioner Gibbons.
My understanding has been that existing non-conforming can be returned to their original state, but not improved, enlarged or anything like that, and I am fine with it continuing in that direction. I've been asked several times to provide written statements to this. That's not something that Commissioner I can do.
Right.
I agree. I mean, we're not here to, lack of better words, or screw people over on. If you have a structure that went down or a pole that collapsed or whatever happened, you should be able to do that. But asking us to, we write ordinances and codes, right? So that's what we can do. It doesn't mean someone won't sue you over it at some point. I mean, but is our code not clear enough? Then that's something that P&Z should be taking up, right? I defer to my colleagues here is it clear enough, Fred? It says what you can and can't do in our code, right?
Yeah, I mean,
There's always interpretation, but, the intent is not to, mess somebody up that had there was an accident of some sort.
so I would be concerned about drafting a code provision that is just really designed to protect people's rights to a pool that would apply to all non-conforming structures, not just pools, and putting that in the code without that being a product of a great deal of study. Because the zoning codes are supposed to work in such a way that attrition is an important vehicle for bringing properties into compliance. So certain structures have a natural life, and so I don't think we want to put something in the code because it will protect these pool owners and then find out it has all kinds of other impacts that we're not anticipating. So that's my concern about the Seabreeze Village community. I mean, I have a copy of the plot plan right here. This is the law. This is the law for that community. And you can see, there are more dwellings on that property than are currently permitted, by a lot. No one could take a position that a dwelling can't be repaired. It's a unit on a plot plan, and this is the law. Now, the pool is on the plot plan as well. So this pool, I believe, can be repaired and replaced in its current position because this is the law. This is the pre-existing law for the improvements that are located on that property. This was recorded in, I think it was 84, predates this ordinance that we're talking about. There is no scenario where I could see that we would deny a permit to replace that pool if it was in need of being replaced, or repair the pool if it was in need of being repaired. If the applicants wanted to expand the pool, that's not permitted by this plot plan. So I really don't see this concern that's being raised as justifying any further delay, but that's a determination for this group.
So
Could I just speak to why that's not relevant?
No. My view on this, Fred, is what we are hearing from the public is they're looking for some assurances about the future. And we've had situations in which, in council over the last several years, in which the scenario has happened, whether it be the fence height that's grandfathered in or non-conforming, or those are my parking spots. Bob Frederick signed that over to me, 30 years ago. So there's things that have happened in prior councils that we spend time on now. And if there was I would be a proponent of putting a process in that if you have an existing non-conforming building or structure or pool that predates any ordinance, there's no reason not to provide them written assurance, so they have that piece of paper for future councils to protect themselves, so that we don't have to go back and look into it. When we had the issue with Reed Street, all the way at the end, they wanted to raise up the property, and they came back to us saying, no, we were given these 20 spots or 12 spots right in front, I can't remember, the Monaco place, Monacles. That was done, and it took more work than it should have to prove that they actually was granted to them from council. So I'd be a proponent of giving the people the assurances that they're looking for in regards to these.
Tell me again how you want us to give them the
Yeah,
assurance.
what would be the method?
It could be in writing that this to Seabreeze HOA, based upon review of the planned structure, your existing pool can be repaired, blah, 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 blah. Signed, town manager, mayor.
I don't have any issue with that. Fred, do you have any concern?
I would appreciate.
I don't, I mean,
It just gets, I would want that if I was in Seabreeze. I would want that if I had a pool in my front yard and that in my buildable area, just so I'd have that document. Now, if somebody comes along and bulldozes my house and puts another structure in, well, that piece of paper is no longer valuable.
First of all, I would say that I don't know of anything in the town code that would prevent anyone from repairing their current pool. There's just nothing there, even if you have to completely resurface it and replace the coping that's around the pool. I don't see anything that would prevent you from doing that. I think the question is what happens if, by no fault of your own, something not voluntary, that you actually have to do some sort of structural repair, replacement of a swimming pool because of a storm or some other problem, earthquake, God forbid. To me, I see enough holes in the current structure of the code that I would like to see some better language in the code so that we feel that things are more comprehensively covered. I mean, it may be okay to give a particular property owners or set of property owners some assurance, some written assurance, but it just seems to me we're going to run into the problem down the road potentially with a different town council who has a different view of how things should be, and perhaps a different town council who has a completely different view of what you can and can't do if you're faced with mandatory replacement of a structure on your property. So I think there are some things that we can do. It may not be easy. I don't think we have to make it just specific to swimming pools. The language may have to be a bit more general so that we're talking about, accessory structures generally, but I think we have to define what a non-conforming structure is. We just don't have that in
And I think that's where
But I think that the general tone around the table here is that we want people to be able to rebuild what they already have if they're in a position where they have to rebuild.
Well, but the reason we don't have anything in our code about legal non-conforming structures is that is a common law element. If we had nothing in our code about legal non-conforming buildings, as we do with regard to legal non-conforming structures, it wouldn't mean there's no such thing as rights associated with legal non-conforming structures and buildings. Basically, most of what you see in our code that relates to how we're going to treat legal non-conforming buildings is an effort to chip away at legal non-conforming, vested property rights. So.
But there is a section, and my computer is frozen up at the moment, so I can't tell you exactly what it is. I want to say it's somewhere around 185-
It's 50.
49 or 58.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That, you do have the right to rebuild if your structure, your building.
Yeah, but if you have a sign, for instance, a billboard that's non-conforming, and the thing is 100 years old and it collapses to the ground, you can't rebuild that. I mean, that's attrition. And I think if we start tinkering around with language that chips away at the attrition concept, then we're going to do more damage. I mean, pools in the front yard, how many pools in front yards do we have? I mean, so all we're talking about here is pools in front yards. And
Well,
There are only, I think, 2 with 1 on the horizon. That's 3 in the whole community. There's an argument, I guess, that the Seabreeze Village pool is in a front yard, but I don't know that that's, I don't know that that's so. I do
Well,
know
I
that
think
there's a
it's
plot
the-
plan that says that it's legal. And I think that's written and recorded, and that stands for something more than a letter that I would write.
So I can argue that even if that's the case, then the town providing a written assurance is just an additional support for those things. And because it is frustrating from a council's perspective to spend time on non-conforming issues when you go around town and you see so much non-conforming. This started with the fence site. And I was grandfathered, and whenever I hear that, I cringe, that I was grandfathered. So the only way to know if you were grandfathered is, here's your document. I was grandfathered to show it. And if you don't have this, you're not grandfathered.
But we have issues like this all the time. We've got houses that are legal non-conforming, and if they're taken down, they have to be rebuilt in a conforming manner. And that's a critical component to our code. And if we tinker around too much with legalizing things permanently that are non-conforming, then I think there's concern on my part that we're going to do some damage. You could have a building that's too tall. You could have a house that doesn't meet our height requirements. And if somebody wants to rebuild that house, can they?
Right, so we're talking about 2 different issues, though. You're talking about if someone voluntarily tore it down, can they rebuild it as is, versus somebody who's repairing the existing structure or renovating the existing structure, or was, damaged by a fire, which is the part in the code that's damaged by a fire, you can in fact rebuild it. Is that correct?
A building, you
Yes.
can. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, every time we talk about a zoning change, another flavor of people who oppose it basically look at the existing non-conforming people who have something that doesn't, they get very nervous, right? And the reality is we have a town filled with non-conforming. And we've been dealing with it pretty well in terms of people being able to keep what they have. I see it all the time in North End with fences. We see it with many of the classic Dewey Beach cottages in the North End that are in the existing setbacks. I mean, we have a very, very successful track record of allowing people to kind of keep what they have, yet being able to improve our code. From my perspective, I think that because so many people from Seabreeze specifically are very nervous about this issue, I think it does make sense for the town manager, with input from our town attorney, does draft something to assuage their concerns, because there's just a lot of people and they just want to assuage their concerns. As far as what Mr. Persinger said, I'm okay if people want. We could maybe just refer it on an open-ended basis with nothing specific, Fred, because I know you've got a lot of legal concerns about how far we take the code, but we certainly could have planning and zoning take a look at it and see if there's appropriate places to perhaps update the language with your guidance in terms of making sure that we don't go too far that causes unintended effects. I don't know what people think about that.
Is it possible to make one additional comment? I apologize if it's not the appropriate time. I don't know protocol here. This is Todd Hudson. I'm sorry. I was just going to mention.
Go ahead.
If it's okay.
Go ahead, Todd,
Yeah,
real quick.
I'll be brief. Yeah. We also on our within our pool confine, if you will, which is fenced in and pretty protected from Route 1. We do also have a small structure that has our pool like functionality, if you will, as well as a small little bathroom for folks to use for guests as well as owners. Is that also in question here? Like if that for some reason were destroyed by fire or flood or whatever, would that not be able to be rebuilt? Just asking a question. I don't know the answer to that, so I just want to throw that out there. I appreciate you guys really giving a lot of thought to this conversation because it's important to us, as you can hear. Final comment, Todd Hudson.
Where's the bath?
All right, now he's done.
I'm sorry.
I'm kidding, Todd, I'm kidding.
Fred, is that on the plot?
I think I know what Mr. Hudson's talking about. There's something called a pool building right there. And, if it was there Yeah, I mean, if it's not on this plan, it's not legal. So if it's on the plan, it's legal. And if it were to be, you know, catch fire and burn to the ground, it could be rebuilt, because this is the law for that development. So I
And if
do
it's-
not
and if it's
view
not
this
there, it
pool
shouldn't be
ordinance to
there.
be any kind of a concern that justifies, you know, these types of issues being raised.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So where do you want to take next steps? Refer to plan this specific to planning and zoning? Because I do look at it more than just swimming pools. I do look
Yeah,
at it as
I mean, I think we should open-end it, refer it to planning and zoning to look at this issue
for
broadly.
grandfathering,
I don't want to use that word, but
non-conforming
yeah, to look at this
elements.
issue broadly and see if there's some places where the code can be tightened up a bit.
Okay,
Clarify.
And it's overused.
great.
Right.
Any other,
Yeah, I think that's the right thing to do. Let's get some language that makes everybody happy.
and get the assurances that they need?
Right.
It's fine. All right.
Refer.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. C. And it's 4:20.
Oh,
Discussion of possible action regarding draft ordinance to amend Chapter 1 definitions of the municipal code to define front buildable area in Chapter 185 zoning to prohibit the placement of swimming pools and hot tubs in the front buildable area. I think we, Commissioner Persinger, how would, of all the things that you've heard today, how would you, you've already had public comment? Kelly, you only get one trip.
How does that apply to a corner lot? I have a corner lot and, you know, I refer to the front as the front and the side to the side, but I know the setbacks are different, so would you treat that differently as a side yard?
there are definitions as to that. If you're a corner, you can pick.
Yeah, so if I pick.
But then you
bare-
have to keep that.
Right, so in terms of a hot tub or a pool, I could put it in my side yard even though it's street front. Yeah.
Well, the front yard, for any restrictions that apply to the front and side, the front yard prevails.
And the front is defined by the street.
Right, so there would be two streets, and whatever the setbacks are, could be 12 on one side and 18 on the other. For the area, literally in the setback, the front yard restrictions would apply.
Wait, so I would, if I was to put, on my street front side yard, if I was to put a hot tub, I would have to,
If it's,
I would have to put it in the buildable area, not in the yard.
you can put it in your side yard, which means it has to be outside of the front yard, behind whatever front yard.
So if we choose, my address is Bayard, and my side yard is St. Louis, but directly on St. Louis, it's a corner lot. So if I want to put something there, I can put it outside of the buildable area, but in between my setbacks and the buildable area.
Yeah, see, this is scary stuff. I mean, because we're
We
not
need to look
looking
at
at
specifically at it.
you know, the information that we would need to look at to make a precise.
Because we are about to build, yeah.
The building official would need to answer that question with building permit, I believe.
But I mean,
I'm speaking-
I think it more is defined by how you guys write the code. Because I consider my front yard one side and the side yard the other side. And if you're saying side yard, why can't I use that as my side yard?
Well, good comment. Thank you, Kelly.
If I can make.
I agree, you should take that up with the building official, right? Yeah.
If I could make a suggestion, since some people are still commenting, Mr. Mayor, you might want to just ask if there are any other people who wanted to make comments, and then close it off, and then we can have our discussion.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yes, of course. Marcia Scheck, guys, I just think you're losing focus on what the 47 people that wrote in against this ordinance, and it was not just against placing pools and hot tubs, restricting them from the front buildable area. It was restricting anything from the front buildable area. People feel like that is their prerogative to use how they want to use it within the code without additional prohibitions to certain particular items that the council is now trying to prohibit in an area where you could build a 35-foot tall house. And that's what I think people are asking you to look at. It's not about pools. It's not about hot tubs. It's about this vote is to restrict for the first time, to restrict the front building envelope where you can build a house, to not allow particular uses or applications in that area. So I just am asking if you could keep the focus on the 47 people that signed do not want the town regulating what they can do in their buildable area outside of the current code, meaning height, setbacks, ground. It's where you can build a house. They feel like you should be able to build whatever you want there within the boundaries of height, FAR limits, without saying there are specific applications we are not going to allow you to do inside the area where you can build a house. And so I think that's what people's comments are. I did want to say one thing. We did have a catastrophic event at 205 Carolina where the contractor made an error and the house collapsed, and they were a non-conforming building, and the Board of Adjustment voted down their ability to rebuild that structure. And it was the town's opposition to it. And that was a non-conforming structure. And it was the details of whether that structure was destroyed by peril or purposely. And the town's opinion was the contractor destroyed it, so it should not be rebuilt. Now, they did get a variance, but that's very subjective. And I understand why people are very worried about this, because I think people don't understand the town's limitations. And I think the town's opinion of those is based on what administration is in. So I think they're asking for clarity, but I also think they're asking that you not restrict what they do in their $1 million or $2 million piece of tiny land inside their buildable footprint.
So, Mr. Persinger, you witnessed the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. And I mean, if there are 45 people who are opposed to this ordinance because they're concerned that structures other than pools are being prohibited from being placed in the front buildable area, then their concerns are misplaced, because the Planning Commission specifically decided that they were not going to recommend that we prohibit all structures in the front buildable area, just swimming pools. And in fact, it was Ms. Schick who testified very persuasively that, look, if you want to go forward, you should do yourselves a favor, and you should strike the applicability of this to other structures and let this go up or down on the question of swimming pools only. And that is what's before you. That's what the Planning Commission recommended. And if you vote on this, that's what you'll be restricting today, is swimming pools in the front buildable area, but not these other concerns, which are apparently the foundation for all the, or much of the opposition to the ordinance.
Could I just say in closing, I don't think you can subjectively decide what the opposition is. From what I have heard, the opposition is about government deciding what we can or can't do inside our buildable footprint.
That's what zoning law, that's what you do every day. That's what you do every day as.
Well, you're hearing
authority.
opposition to it.
You can't build a 12-foot wall inside your buildable footprint. We
sure
regulate the number of
can.
buildings.
You
No.
sure can. You sure can.
Mr. Mayor, if I might advise that we shouldn't really be doing comments back and forth.
Yeah,
All right,
I
we're
agree.
done.
So
David Moskowitz, I believe, had one final comment before we shut it down.
Well, actually, my comment was from the last agenda item. I actually filed a FOIA, and that plot plan that the solicitor has, I should have. I was told it wouldn't be available till September. So being whatever he has, I would like sent to me after this meeting? Wait, no
It's a
talking
public
back and
record.
forth.
It's a public record. It's not something that was in the town's files. It's a public record. You can get it online. I'd be happy to share it with you, but
Okay, but again.
I just
it takes
printed
my
it
time.
off, and I just printed it off before this meeting, and so it wasn't withheld from anyone who was requesting
I've never seen it
access to
before.
Right.
So
Okay,
we're
again.
done with public comment.
Wait, I'm talking, you can't just cut me off. I'm sure, can I finish talking? And that's why I said, please don't interrupt me, just send it after the meeting. That's what I asked for, and that's what you're doing, so no issue. With one, but I should have been given it beforehand. Number two, there's a difference between a pool house, and pool fence. The council keeps on going back between pools, pool house, pool fences. Our property is affected. Three, at the planning and zoning meeting, the solicitor and, again, assistant town manager, to get it passed, they said, oh, all these properties are grandfathered. There's nothing in writing, it's not set. What Commissioner Persinger said is, should we approach these together? That's what you should do. And then, like Liz Gibbings always says, are we trying to solve a problem that no one has? And that's what it seems. Her family, I think, is affected with rebuilding with LA. So many houses can't rebuild in California. And that's what Dewey is becoming. Like, what is our pool? Oh, I can just see, we can rebuild the pool, but we can't rebuild the pool house, which stores the equipment. And we can't rebuild the pool fence that allows us to have legally the pool. So it's just have both together. It makes no sense. You talk about the planning and zoning meeting. No, everyone here is speaking to not vote for this or to delay this. So it makes no sense. You would just go against public opinion and vote for it. It's not prudent. It's not the prudent thing to do.
My turn.
It's my turn.
It's your turn.
Go ahead, I do have some comments.
No, we've talked about this for a while. Now it's at council, it's public comment is over regarding this pool structure. I've been very, I've stated my opinion on this. I don't believe that, as from a town perspective, that we should dictate what people do in their buildable footprint. I think that's up to them. If they want to take out their house, they want to take out square footage of what they can build, then that's their decision. As I've said before, if I had a house on the north side of the street and I wanted a pool, I'd want it in the front of the house because that's where the sunshine is. It's not in the back of the house. So that's how I feel about this particular discussion.
Well, we've all heard the commonly heard phrase, rear backyard pool. I think it's pretty unusual to have pools in the front yard. I'm not aware that there's any local municipality which allows pools in the front yard. They tend to define front yard a little differently than we do, and then basically I think at least one of the jurisdictions explicitly talks about the front yard being any space in front of the house, and they prohibit having a swimming pool in the front yard. I tend to, I don't have a strong feeling about this one way or the other, but I tend to be swayed by public opinion. Almost all of the public opinion that we have gotten until today has been in favor of this ordinance, that is prohibiting swimming pools in the front buildable footprint. There are probably 35 or 40 people whose names that we have who support this ordinance. We now have, the claim here is 47. I haven't gone through and counted all of the names on the list.
Redundancies.
Excuse me?
There are redundancies on this list.
There are redundancies. There are a number of people who presumably own more than one property, and they're listed more than once. So I don't know if this is 47 people or not. The problem with the input that I have here that I've received today is that it was couched in a way that's totally biased, because it was framed as a taking of property rights, as opposed to just giving us a simple thumbs up or not on whether or not they support item C, which is on the agenda, which would prohibit swimming pools in the front buildable area. So, having done lots of surveys over the year, you don't ask two things in the same question, and that's what they did here. So you're going to get a biased and uninterpretable result if you do that. There isn't, I don't have a great sense of urgency to do this today. If the rest of the council wants to pursue it in this way, we could delay this. I don't know if we need another public hearing, but offer the public another opportunity for comment. If we're going to get comments that are opposed to this particular draft ordinance, then I would like to have it directed at the draft ordinance as rather than being characterized simply as a taking of rights. I think, again, as the town council was, our counselor was pointing out, there are lots of things that get regulated about within the buildable footprint. So, I'm not sure that this is necessarily any different. Clearly, other municipalities have done exactly this thing, and they have prohibited pools in this kind of location. So I don't find it unusual that we would be considering this. I think that, having a big effort to allow pools in the front yard is really unusual. It's backyard pools are the thing. So anyway, if there's support from other council members, we can delay this. I'm okay if we want to take a vote on this as well, right?
Yeah, this is new pools.
So, is it okay?
Yeah, of course.
So, I want to talk a little bit about conflict. The conflict in general about pools in the North End has been going on now for over a decade. And we've had many, many hearings filled with, mobs of angry people. People talk about that things haven't been discussed enough, but just in the last year, we've had to do this ordinance, which kind of started in planning and zoning with a bunch of people speaking up, came to us, went back to planning and zoning with a bunch of people speaking up, it's now at us. Before that, we had the Board of Adjustment, where a lot of people felt like they needed to talk, with that. We had the clarification ordinance, which again started with us, then it had to be planning and zoning, and it had to come back to us. We had the dipping pools, which went to Charter and Code multiple times, came back to us, went to this. People are worn out, okay? I'm telling you that as a resident of the North End, there are people, there's investors who definitely want to be able to do that when it's what's going to make them a little bit more money for however they want to configure. There are some homeowners who do favor it. They may not want it themselves, but they just may take a very firm approach. But the overall sentiment in the North End specifically is they don't want pools in front of houses. They've been very, very outspoken about this. And I want to talk about conflict. The conflict's going to continue. And the reason it's going to continue is when a pool is in front of a house, people walk by it and they see kind of the activity and the noise, whereas when it's behind a house, it's just less triggering in terms of them being frustrated with whatever's happening. And I'm not saying that pool noise is bad. What's one person's perfectly pleasant party is another person that can't sleep with the windows open. Even the innocent people in a rental house, half the people will go out and have coffee in the morning, and they'll say, hey, let's not wake everyone up. They go have coffee outside, which means the neighbor can't sleep with the windows open because they're all chatting right outside their window. There's something evil about that. It's just the way it is, right? So, and that can happen in front or backyards. But when it happens in a backyard, it's much more limited and it's out of sight. So there's less of an opportunity for that conflict to continue. I recently heard, about two people who have, wildly different viewpoints on this. One of the people was yelling at them, in the street, just kind of, that. I also, saw myself on social media, without getting into specifics, this one person who spoke up at a previous meeting, and gave an impassioned thing. She wasn't just ridiculed on social media, which kind of went viral. I mean, people were talking about going over to her home and harassing her. And as a woman, I mean, anyone would be upset about it, but as a woman, that's really, really bad. I want to kind of keep the privacy, but I couldn't even believe what they were saying. They were very, very, very intimidating. So a lot of people, and I can tell you on Chesapeake Street, a lot of people feel very strongly, but they're like, I'm not dipping my nose in this. They just don't want to deal with all the hostility and whatnot, And this one woman, I don't know if she would ever come to a meeting again after what happened to her, So, a lot of stuff's going on, a lot of conflicts going on. I think the public's been heard through this, the dipping pools, the clarification ordinance. We're pretty clear on how people feel about this. And that's backed up by zoning in pretty much every town that's dense suburban, which is really what the North End is the dense suburban configuration, not allowing this to happen. And there's a reason for that.
I'm next, okay. So I don't have a strong opinion about pools, front yards, backyards. I do have a strong opinion it needs to be 18 plus 3 back, if you want to move your house back. But my personal opinion, disconnected from this, we have a process where we've had public hearings in here and in planning and zoning and all sorts of places, and I trust those processes to work like they're supposed to. And if this is what planning and zoning feels is the best way to go forward, I would like to respect their opinion and accept it. That's all I got.
Good point. Gary? anything else?
Nothing further now.
My thought, we're making this town-wide, and it seems like it's an NR district passion. I'm not sure the rest of the town feels that way. I don't think anybody else in the town weighed in, except, we could check all these addresses here, but pretty sure 99% of them are on the north end of town. I'd feel more comfortable if we just made it an NR zoning change and not impact everybody else in town. Because I don't think my honest opinion is I don't think everybody else has weighed in on this. We really don't have many swimming. We have some condos that have pools, but I'm more comfortable having it be an NR district because that seems to be the prevailing opinion that people have there.
Well, I'd make a motion to approve this, just applying it to the NR district.
Well, as written, it would apply to RR as well. It would not apply to RB 1, 2, 3. It would just be residential districts.
So where's RR?
Well, it's in the southern end of town. Virtually most of RR is in the flood zone. But there's some, let me think. It's RB2 all along Route 1.
Right.
And those are, mixed-use properties. RB2 is exclusively commercial, I believe, or at least it doesn't allow single-family homes.
Right.
And RB3 does have some limited single-family homes, but still it would not be considered a residential district, I don't think. So, if you were going to make this more specific, you would limit it either to just NR or to NR and RR.
It doesn't already say in residential districts on line 46.
It says residential districts, but then you have to say, what is a residential district?
I thought that specification.
I would interpret it as NR and RR, but if you want to make it specific.
So the line, Paul, to answer your question, is at Houston Street South, the residential areas are RR, and the north side of Houston and all is NR.
So if we could just amend the language to be NR in that sentence.
I'm okay with that, because that's where the uproar is coming from about the pools in front. So people have been clamoring for it for 12 years, so I'd like to be able to deliver.
So the motion,
The motion is to approve this, modifying it to be only for neighborhood residential.
I'll second that.
vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Give your reasons, please. This is a zoning change.
Yeah, I vote in favor because it's reasonable. It still allows people to have a pool. It just modifies where it can be, and the pools will be less negatively impactful on the neighborhood.
I support the process that led us to this particular ordinance.
Yeah, I agree that my vote on it to be the NR district is for the reasons stated there, but, the back and forth so many times on it, I think we've exhausted and we have to make a decision. Because this isn't brand new. The property rights thing does, I understand that, and I don't know enough that's, is that an infringement of property rights? That's, for some judge to figure out. That's not up to me to figure out. So those are my reasons.
For voting?
Voting for this amendment, limiting it to the NR district.
And you are for it also?
Yeah, I will vote for it. I think it is a reasonable thing to do. Other municipalities have done the same thing. I do, as Commissioner Gibbings said, I do support the process, and we did get some definitive recommendations from Planning and Zoning. All of the, virtually all of the public input that we have gotten until today has been in favor of this ordinance. And I must say, again, I am confused a bit by the substance of the input that we received today. So I believe that we should go with the weight of opinion that we've received thus far, and at least prior to today, and so I vote positively on this.
I will vote against it, but it still passes 4-1. I think Commissioner Gibbings' comment about P&Zs is true and accurate. I think that they've done the work. To Commissioner Jazinski, this has been up and down, up and down, up and down, back and forth. We've heard enough about the public opinion. I don't feel like I could vote for this personally. So it goes 4-1. All right? All right. Item D, review and discuss April financials. Ms. Hall.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'll be very brief. As the town mayor said, the parking season started today. In the month of April alone, Town Hall sold 463 seasonal permits. Last year, they sold 344 over the same period. Going to be busy. We received information on the April transfer tax revenues. We're starting the year off with a $200,000 coming into Town Hall off of April transfer tax. I reviewed transfer tax since fiscal 23 by month. Historically, the month of May sees the highest revenues. However, last year was March.
Oh, yep. I just wanted to stream.
Please put yourself on mute.
It'll be interesting to see how long this lasts, since Sussex County just released in their discussion of their budget that they're seeing a downturn in transfer tax countywide. The transition to Edmunds is in its final stages for financial reporting. The final data pull was yesterday. Myself and Shelley have been going through training this past week. We'll continue it this next week. We're also doing the final mapping of the existing items to the financial module. Historically, towns go with the financial module first and then add in the permitting and licensing. Dewey, as always, is very unique, and 10 years ago they did it opposite. So it's a little bit harder, but it's going to come out great. I provided the commissioners with samples of what could be run. Now these are just quick. I went through and just pulled. I have not gone into detail as to how everything will look, and that was last April's data. So it is not consistent with this year. I plan on looking at what other reports can be run and what we can create. But everything's set to alleviate additional manual work. And I hope everybody enjoys what is to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Saul. Just a comment, the financials, as we're going through this conversion conversation I had with Ms. Hall, it was a little wonky, is the best word to put it, as we're going through trying to keep two systems going and up and running. In looking at the fund balance that was provided, the unassigned fund does not have the grant revenue that came in for town hall. It's not included in that because of how the books are just separate. The unassigned fund should have 120,636 plus the 922 that we started with. So 922,000 that we had at the end. So that correction will be made before the next meeting. Mr. President?
Yeah, in terms of the budget, if we look at, I'm looking at the financial summary for operating expenditures or operating performance. What we had agreed to, this shows a surplus on an annual basis of 113,222. What we had agreed on was that there would be a set aside of 13% of the parking meter revenues, which would go to help us satisfy the rainy day fund requirement by the end of this operating year. So we wouldn't have any of those revenues yet because parking meters just started today, or the Park Mobile obligation just started today. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that so we can correct that next time.
And yeah, you can amend the words where it says transfer tax to rainy day, just parking to rainy day, and instead of 5% to 13%. Okay. Any other questions from Ms. Hall?
We're off to a great start.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I thought we dropped the transfer tax.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Item E, discuss possible vote to appoint Mark Nordquist and Wayne Haskell to the Planning Commission for a term of 3 years each.
Yeah, there were two available openings. I think at least one of these people are currently on planning and zoning, so I would just like to make a motion that we appoint both of these individuals for new 3-year terms.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. There's a comment on a volunteer? All right.
David, go ahead.
Yeah, yes, they're volunteers, but they're a planning and zoning board, which we have seen controls the town. Other towns, which the town has referenced, other towns require the planning and zoning to do University of Delaware IPA. They have coursework, and I asked to speak before the vote. That coursework needs to stop being required. Even one class would be an improvement. I did a 4-year, and the only person who's done a class in the last 5 years is, I guess, Rick Hardy, but he's on the Board of Adjustment. So the planning and zoning should be taking University of Delaware IPA coursework like other towns. You're hiring University of Delaware IPA for the comp plan. There's no reason they can't be taking courses, and the courses are like $50. And I think they might be even free, but Dewey has had a policy of reimbursing. It's used to be done, it's stopped, and it needs to start again.
Thank you, David. For the record, I do agree with David that any additional training that we can provide all committee members or commission, that why not to move forward, but that doesn't change the necessity of the vote.
Right.
Unless you guys want, unless we need to vote again.
My vote's still the same.
Not on that concept.
Okay, all right. All right. F, discuss possibly appoint members to the Comprehensive Development Plan Committee. Commissioner Persinger.
Okay, we have solicited membership, volunteers for members of this committee through the newsletter, I think through email, and I think we've tried to mention it at every meeting. We've also contacted each of the individual committees, the chair of each of the committees, so we wanted to make sure that we had representation on the committee from all of the various committees. I think we have them all represented except for the Board of Adjustment. If anyone thinks that's really necessary to pursue, we can certainly do that. The Comprehensive Development Plan, we will be developing this with help from the Institute for Public Administration at the University of Delaware. And thus far, or at this point, we have, I believe it's 16 members, Kate, if I've gotten that right. I believe we have 16 people who have volunteered. This committee will work a bit unlike other committees. Everything is done publicly, has to be done publicly. But their sessions will be more workshops than sessions where you have to have a quorum of members of the committee present in order to make a decision. They will really be making decisions. At some point, they'll make some recommendations, and they have to satisfy quorum requirements at that point. But primarily, they'll be working in a workshop format. And Jim Dedes is not here. I assume that the contract has been signed with IPA, or should be soon.
It should be soon.
Okay.
I'll have an answer for you. I'll call Jim tonight.
Okay, all right, good. So I would like to offer a motion that we vote to appoint the members of the committee, the members that have been offered as members of the committee, the 16 people, and I believe that list was available to everyone. It was posted on the website.
It's posted on the website.
Yeah.
And an attachment to today's agenda.
Any public comment about the Comprehensive Plan Committee? Okay.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. But you better find a chair, so I'm not doing it.
I should have mentioned that we don't have a chair for that.
All right, so I want everyone just to relax a little bit while I give a little summary for item G, or the new item G. It is discussion regarding filming within town, including review and consideration of permit requirements, fee structure, scheduling, location use, operational guidelines, and other application regarding commercial and non-commercial filming activities. The situation is this: over the last several years, we have been approached by several organizations that wanted to film in Dewey Beach. I'm not talking about weddings, I'm not talking about parties, I'm not talking about family gatherings. I'm talking about professional film crews coming into Dewey Beach. This started with the group that originally did the Jersey Shore, if you remember that from 20 years ago, and the debacle that created for that beach town called Seaside Heights. We were able to just tell them no, and they didn't come in, but they were planning on it. What we're attempting here, this is a conversation, is to put some structure around protecting Dewey Beach's reputation as it exists today, and not going back to where it was 40 years ago. We have worked really hard on this brand over the last several years, and we've gotten into a positive spot and want to continue that. This is in no way trying to take the rights, First Amendment rights or any other amendment rights away from people enjoying themselves. It is, if you're going to use the name of town of Dewey Beach in a film, series, commercial, for public use, we would just like to put some parameters. It's no different than somebody who wants to, the $1 million of insurance, it's common for any business to have in case there's an issue. So I'll open it up for any public comment. This is a fact finding, it's a building of how do we do this in the future and protect ourselves. So anyone here for public comment on protecting Dewey Beach value and brand by monitoring how films and series are done here in the town of Dewey Beach? Oh, no.
Come on up and say your name, where you're from.
Ellen McIntyre, I'm with the Cape Gazette. So would this apply at all to the media and as in journalists and videos for social media for the newspaper?
No, not at all.
Okay, thanks.
Good question.
It's a good question. Again, this is for professional companies coming in, bringing a team of a film crew, a 20-some-odd film crew, to film an event.
I remember years ago when they filmed an episode of Cops here. It didn't show Dewey Beach in a very good light. But yeah, if you're bringing a film crew in, this is different. This is a commercial production. This isn't.
Right.
You got to protect, if we have 5,000 people in front of the harbor because they're filming something in there, well, we better have some police available.
We have to have some procedures and rules to follow.
Right.
We had this group that came in 2 weeks ago. They asked me, what are your rules? And I said, we really don't have anything on the books. And we worked with them, and I told them they couldn't do some things. But we need to have some type of parameters for folks that are going to come in with the examples the mayor just gave.
And this does not impact anybody that is filming a wedding or other special event. You still have to have a business license if you're working in town as a wedding photographer, but you are perfectly permitted to do that without any of this.
We've had a woman up here who wants to do a movie in a positive light about Dewey Beach a few months ago.
She presented a couple weeks
ago. As I said, we've had Jersey Shore people. We've also had
Real Housewives
Real
of the
Housewives
of the Potomac.
Of the Potomac, yes. That was recently. So, any public comment on this? Just bring it on.
David, go ahead.
So, as I emailed the commissioner, there's some breakdown in the ordinance process because this had to be I don't think it had legal review. If you look at the first sentence, it says all filming activities within the town of Dewey Beach must register. That would include YouTube videos, TikToks, documentaries, citizen journalism, political advocacy videos, recording town meetings, because there was issues in 2019 about that. It would be someone recording the police or code enforcement. It could be beach family videos. That language, what you are saying now is different than what's written, and that's the issue that scares people. You're defining something that's a lot different. It says all filming activities, and then it said commercial and non-commercial. So whatever is written is not what's being said here. There's a conflict, at least section 1. And then second, seasonal bans and stuff like that. I understand this is being worked on, but that section 1 is troublesome of the most. Thanks.
Anyone else? Kate?
Did anyone else want to make comment on this item? Go ahead and unmute yourself.
And just for, this is a discussion, there's no action here. So this is
And
where
there's
we
no-
get input from everyone so that we can modify this.
And this is not an ordinance, these are just
No,
talking points.
Correct.
Not seeing anyone.
If anyone in the public has comments, you can send them to wstevens@townofdeweybeach.com. I'll work with the town to bring all those things together. Any other comments from council?
Yeah, I would just say it's really important that you, first of all, write a definition for filming activities. What are you talking about? And make sure that's clear. Then that defines the scope. And are we talking about adding something to the code? Is that okay?
Right.
Yeah, so I think, that, defining that filming activities up front is the most important thing, and you can go from there.
Will do.
And with that being fixed, the no filming projects, that doesn't mean no filming can happen in the town of Dewey Beach between May 15th and September 15th. It just means we don't want
What we
camera
call
crews
season.
in town blocking up the streets during our high season.
And utilizing our resources
Yes,
where they need, where other areas they need to be.
we already have officers coming in from other municipalities to help next weekend. Can you imagine if we had a camera
So
crew
we
here as
will-
well?
So we will work to put some more parameters around this, but this is a conversation to get the truth out. Okay. H, discussion and possible action regarding a draft ordinance to amend Chapter 71, Building Construction of the Municipal Code to specify inspection requirements for construction, repairs, alterations, additions, and maintenance projects. Commissioner Persinger.
Sure. A couple of months ago, we passed an ordinance that dealt with defining maintenance activities on properties here in Dewey Beach, what those included, how they should be approached, and more importantly, how they should be permitted, and whether or not there would be a fee associated with the permit. There were some parameters we put around that, but we did pass the ordinance. But there was a section toward the end of that ordinance to amend Chapter 71-8 of the code, which deals with enforcement. And the language that was added here dealt with inspections. And we added some new language that said the town reserves the right to conduct inspections of all work performed, regardless of whether a formal building permit was issued, and to designate the inspection official. Inspections will seek to ensure that work is consistent with all town code requirements and with the approved building permit if applicable. The inspections will not validate the quality of work performed. And then another piece of that, we said that an inspection will be required for any project for which total cost is at least $15,000. And the cost of the inspection would be added to the building permit fee. We passed this, but as we began to think about implementation, both from the town side and presumably the perspective of people that this would affect, there was some concern about whether or not that $15,000 threshold for requiring inspections was really the right threshold and the right approach. So we delayed enactment or effective date rather for those inspection provisions until I believe June 1st. And we went back and drafted some changes to 71-8. And I would just point out that there is already in the code in 71-1 the ability of the town to conduct inspections. And if we get to the right. And basically, this is in 71-2A6. It says, upon presentation of proper credentials and/or upon written notice to the record title owner of a premises of a time and date for inspection to determine compliance of construction or the existing premises with the provisions of the Dewey Beach licensing regulations, zoning provisions, or building requirements of the Dewey Beach Code or the Sussex County Housing Code. The building official or a duly authorized representative may enter at reasonable times any building, structure, or premises within the town limits to perform any duty imposed upon the building official by this code. That was put in the code in 2000. So the authority to conduct inspections exists, but we didn't have any requirements. And so what we've done in the amendment that is before us today is to put some parameters on how those inspections might be conducted. So the proposed language here, get down to the right section, that's the wrong one, sorry. I pulled up the amendment, corrector amendment, sorry.
Okay. Do you want me to step in? Or-
Yeah, not sure where that, okay, yeah, I'm sorry, I can't pull it up. Basically, what we're saying is that inspection would be required for all new construction, additions, patios, porches, decks, driveways, accessory buildings and structures, any other modifications subject to setback requirements, and interior renovations that involve removal, replacement, or addition of structural elements to reduce, reorganize, or add living space. So it eliminates lots of kinds of things, lots of kinds of projects that you might do in maintaining your home. It's really essentially only if you're making some sort of a major change. It's new construction, it's an addition, or it's some interior renovation where you're moving around walls. You may be putting in a new wall, creating a new room, and then you would apply for a permit for that. So there would be, those kinds of projects would be required, inspection would be required for those kinds of projects. But we're trying to make it a little easier and less invasive potentially by saying, at the owner's option, interior inspections may be satisfied with photos, videos, or final drawings with contractor certification that demonstrate compliance with the work described in and required by any applicable building permit and with code requirements. And then the cost of additional services, if needed for an inspection, will be added to the building permit fee. Inspections, again, this is a language that was already there but just moved. Inspections will not validate the quality of the work. So that's the proposal.
Public comment?
Not seeing any. If there's anyone who wants to comment, if you can unmute.
Anyone here in the back room? No? Okay. Counselor?
Just an implementation question of this. Who's actually going to do the inspections? Are we going to farm that out to somebody?
Not that I'm aware of.
The town staff would do most of it. If the inspection, or if the work is complicated enough, it could be that we would have to bring in outside expertise. We already have a consultant who's working with us now on many of these sorts of things, but generally most of it would be able to be done by
My
town.
concern is if we take this on, we also take on the liability of that approval, right?
No, that last sentence where we're not certifying the
We're
quality.
harmless.
We're
So
helping.
essentially, we're just verifying the work that they told us they're doing is the correct work.
And
they didn't do more than that.
That's all
They
we're
didn't do
trying to
more
do.
than they said they were
And-
going to do.
I'm going to put a new door in my closet, and instead behind that door, I now have a bathroom.
Right.
And I think there's a signal
Yes, there
effect
was a
here
door
as
there.
well. So that, if they know they know upfront that inspection will be required of the work that they've just
And is
received
there
a
going to be a
permit
fee
for.
for it? What are we going to charge for?
Well, if it's just town staff that's doing it, there's no fee.
No.
But again, you would only have extra cost
Right.
if we have to get the outside person
I
to
think it
help
should
us.
have a charge, but.
Well, I mean,
fee
Be
of
built,
some sort.
built in the
We-
in the permit, yes?
that does say that we can add the cost of the permit in there. Think about the situation where you're building and all of a sudden you're changing, there's a possible effect in terms of the number of bedrooms. That triggers another element of, do you have enough parking? If you're going from 3 bedrooms to 5 bedrooms, there's enough parking within the home, especially if it's a rental. If it's a rental house and you're saying that you only have 3 bedrooms and you have 6 bedrooms, our rental license is based upon the number of bedrooms. If you're trying to build into a setback, if it's going to driveways or if it's going to be green spaces, we should have the right to make sure that you're not, or the town has the right to make sure that you're not infringing upon your neighbor's rights.
Right.
And that's really the basis of it.
Okay. That was my only comments.
Does that mean I can have a motion from you?
Yeah, motion.
Motion?
We have a comment over here, sir.
Wait, I had a comment. So the.
No, you're not allowed to.
Yeah, exactly. First of all, I think it's needed, so thank you, but The number two, or I guess number three, where you say an owner's option, you know, it's a small minority, but we occasionally have people who try to kind of go around what they're supposed to be doing. And I think people will use that to basically prohibit a building official from ever coming in to inspect their renovation or their new construction. And so what I would like to do is I would like item 3 to be an owner's option with the building official's concurrence. We may do that. And then I'm okay with it. But I don't think people should have a unilateral right to refuse inspection, which that item can be done.
Agreed. Final drawings with the contractor certification should take care of that, but the others, if they pick instead, they could keep you out. You're using your license when you sign off on that. And so this contractor's not going to certify, but yes, if we could take a photo, then yeah, you could take a picture of what it was before and not show. I totally agree.
Yeah.
I think that's good ad.
So that would say at the owner's option with the concurrence of the building inspector, building official, right? Okay. One other thing I want to mention, as we put this together, rather than sticking with the June 1 effective date.
It says
for these
August 1st on mine.
Yeah, and talking with Jim Dedes, he wanted some time to begin to educate the public about what's required.
Newsletters and other
So
things.
the effective date would be August 1, 2026.
Okay. I motion, right? So
Yes.
I'll amend my motion to change it to what Gary said.
And David.
And David said too.
And I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Discussion regarding a draft ordinance.
No.
I want to make sure I wasn't hearing the same one. Discussion regarding a draft ordinance to amend chapter 185-48 of the municipal code regarding projection of roofs, gutters, and outdoor showers into a required yard. Commissioners may vote to refer this matter to planning commission. Were you?
I think, yeah,
Mr. Dedes asked you to-
Jim was unable to be here today, so he asked me to take care of this. This actually came up as part of a inspection that was being done, or actually maybe it was approval of a building permit. And we were surprised that there was no ability for roofs and gutters to project at all into any required setback area. We already have a section of the code, 185-48, titled Yards and Open Space Generally. Paragraph B says, every part of a required yard shall be open to the sky, except as authorized by this code, and except ordinary projections of sills, belt courses, chimneys, cornices, and ornamental features which may project a distance not to exceed 24 inches into a required yard. And then there's some other information there about window air conditioning units, which can project 36 inches into the yard. So
Big window unit.
The simple fix here is to include roofs and gutters in that first sentence. And if that were the case, if that's the only change that we make, can we do this without a public hearing if we wanted to?
It's unanimous.
Oh.
It's a very simple change.
And
Well, let me put that aside for a
and
minute.
it's less restrictive.
Yes, it's less restrictive. There was also an addition here to consider the addition of outdoor showers and measurement of how far they may project into the required yard. If we decide that's worth pursuing, then I think clearly we should refer this to P&Z.
I think that's worth it all.
Any public comment, Kate?
Hearing none.
All right. Council?
I think that putting the 2 words in line 33 is something we can do. I think discussion about the outdoor showers needs to go to P&Z, so the whole thing should go. That is my thought.
So can I have a motion to send this to P&Z?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I think that is the right thing to do. I would feel better if we'd schedule this for a public hearing and then decided that it was, following the public hearing, then decided that it was not significant. So.
Okay, so moved, so done. J, discussion possible action regarding a recommendation by the Finance Committee to initiate an RFP for an investment management firm. Commissioner Givings.
So as I mentioned in my remarks at the beginning, there were some concerns among the finance committee members that we were not getting enough activity from our current management company, that leaving the money sit on an ongoing basis wasn't really management that deserved a 1% of our holdings. And so they were wondering about the possibility of doing RFP for other groups to also propose running or managing our money. The finance committee also realized as they were making these recommendations that perhaps they did not know enough about our investment policy, and perhaps they were then wanting the investment firm to do things the investment firm could not do. So step one is the next meeting of the finance committee is going to look at the investment policy, but they wanted to start to have a discussion in this group about whether there could be an RFP for other money managers for our investment funds.
Before we comment, anyone for public comment? Catherine?
She's gonna kill you.
She's gonna kill me, I know, my gut's face.
Look at that look.
Great. I don't see one as dependent upon the other, Commissioner. I think
Okay.
that if us to review or to evaluate our current investment policy and us deciding an RFP for an investment firm are two different components. But I do think it's, I think we've had them in place now, Brown Advisory, for as long as I can remember.
I want to say a decade, but I'm not
It
certain.
goes back to, I think, 2015. That's what seems to be the case.
Yeah. I don't think there's any problem with bringing things out to RFP.
And so the committee
We did it
would,
with banking a few years back. So.
And the thought is, we've established an investment policy. They don't change anything all year long, yet collect their 1%. Well, if someone is gonna give you $7.5 million, and you don't have to do anything all year and make $75,000 or
Right.
77, whatever it was, would someone say, yeah, I'll do it for half that?
Right.
So we can look, I mean, people could say no, or people could say yes.
and we will depend on town staff to help us do the RFP in the correct format.
But yeah, as far as the investment policy goes, yeah, you know, that's a fine line here. We need to be conservative because it's money we may need. We haven't used it in 40 years, but we may need it tomorrow, right? So, so we have to be conservative in it, but you know, we don't want to go to a fault. So, you know, I think we're looking for someone to give us some recommendations saying, you can stick within your investment policy, but do A, B, and C, and you'll get a better return, yet you still maintain it within your policy. I think that was the goal of the RFP.
I've been advised that there's someone on the line for public comment.
Yep. David, go ahead.
Yeah, David Moskowitz. So there's some mistruths or false information going around. The town does not pay Brown 1%. Brown actually charges 0.25% for short term and 0.7% for long term. There's other fees that go into the investments and also the trustee fee to US Bank. So it's actually much lower. The town traditionally has paid Brown Advisory 0.5 to 0.6%, and their usual fee is 1%. They actually discounted it for the town. Since Brown Advisory has been with the town, they made 2 million, or almost 2,200,000. The other thing is you have to actually look at the performance because someone's saying they're doing nothing and just earning the money. And yes, there was 70,000 paid in investments, but the return was actually 8% gross or 7.4% net with the fees, but 8%, and the benchmark was 2.4. So and that's over a 5-year period. So they're performing a good 4% above the benchmark, which is considered insanely good for a manager of the money. So like there's a lot of misconceptions. What I get is there's a new Brown rep. The prior two were much more experienced and people may not feel as comfortable with the Brown rep. He's not the person doing the day-to-day investment. It's actually the portfolio managers and the investments. And those are being constantly monitored. Like today, there was a huge spike in interest rates. You need someone to monitor it to get active management because the town doesn't have passive management. It has active management. To get active management under 1% is very good. And to think you can just do passive management and put in an index and things, and what, in an emergency, the town will be screwed. And just again, Brown outperformed the index. Fees are not, it's under 1%, well under 1%. And there's misinformation. So that's the problem. If you're going to do an RFP, you're going to RFP based on incorrect information. This really should go back to the investment committee and let them decide. The town can give the blessing for an RFP, but with the investments committee's discretion.
And the investment committee is asking for the commission, for the council's blessing to go forward. I did want to say that the current Brown Advisory representative, Sean, is the one that told us 1%.
Commissioner Persinger.
Yeah, I have to say that I agree with much of what we just heard from Mr. Moskowitz. I wouldn't characterize it quite that way, but I agree with a lot of the points that he made. I don't know whether that's 1%. I mean, I did not hear Sean say that, but I obviously take your word for it. What I think is important is that we should pin that down before we go forward with this. Understand exactly what the fees are, what's Brown charging, what other additional fees there may be. I think there was some perception in the discussion from what I heard, and I did not listen to the entire Finance Committee discussion, but it seemed to be some concern that we're, with the stock market going as crazy as it's been going, that we're not really doing that well. But I think you have to remember that the biggest chunk of money that we have in the Beach Replenishment Fund is in fixed investments, fixed income investments. So that ain't going to follow the overall stock market. We're not going to meet the kind of performance that you see in the S&P 500. I think if you look again, the trailing 5 years of performance, our portfolio, the net of fees has been 7.4%, the benchmark, which I believe is U.S. 10-year Treasury bills. And there could be some discussion about whether or not that's the appropriate benchmark. It's described as blended. Anyway, that 5-point differential is certainly good, I think. Even if you look at the last 12 months, the total portfolio net was 6.5 versus 4.0 for the blended benchmark. So I don't have a problem at all going forward with the RFP. I think that's a good idea. I just would like to pin those fees down. In terms of the investment policy, the policy itself is in the code. I think it even says that I think it probably still says investment committee, but it's not the finance committee. You should review it once a year. Yeah. And then there's the implementation plan, which really sets specific parameters. So all that should be relooked at. I agree they should do that. And let's go ahead with the RFP and see what else is out there.
Yeah. And we do have a reconstituted committee, many of whom didn't even know we had a policy. So we've got some training to do there too. Acknowledged.
It's hard to keep people up. As someone said earlier, we're all volunteers.
Some of us volunteer the year.
Yeah.
Right, not everybody volunteers.
I didn't say that.
All right. Any other comments? Any other questions?
I think Ellen had a comment.
No,
No?
I'm good.
Can I have a motion to approve the finance recommendation to initiate an RFP for an investment management firm?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Then we get to the section 5 of our meeting, closing. Commissioner comments. Commissioner Jasinski.
I'd like to thank my fellow commissioners, specifically around the item C on the agenda. This is something that's cost a lot of people in the North End a lot of pain for a lot of years, trying to kind of get our zoning in line with what basically most similarly situated people do. So I thank the commissioners, and I also thank the members of the public who come to numerous meetings to basically deal with various flavors of this issue.
Commissioner Gibbings.
I'd like to make a personal acknowledgement, please.
Of course.
My mother and my brother have joined us for today's meeting, and they're in the back of the room. They always wondered what it was I did, and now they know.
I hope they know.
So in case you're wondering who those people were that didn't have public comment,
I know, they're
that's who
sitting
they
back
are.
there saying, you do this every month? Jesus.
Commissioner Barra.
One comment here. We have Dewey and Bloom this Sunday, 10 a.m. is planning day. So you're going to see a bunch of people on the street. The planters were watered bright and early this morning by the Road with Fire Company, so we want to thank them. But anybody that wants to come out and help is welcome. Bring your gloves and your mini shovel and go at it. So, and then there's a pizza party for the volunteers at Grotto's at noon on Sunday.
Wonderful. Commissioner Persinger.
I have nothing left to say. Thank God.
On that note.
Well, two things. One is, a few things. Our next meeting will be June 26th. It would normally be June 19th, but that is a national holiday. During this month of May, we also lost a member of our community who passed away, Carol Margaret Homan. So just a moment for her. We try to acknowledge when one of our residents passes. And Memorial Day weekend is 2 weekends away. So we're one weekend
Next
away.
weekend, yeah.
How to get here, so yeah, it's really early this year. Have a good Memorial Day. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Wow, that was quick.
Wow.
Second.
Everybody was a
All in
first
favor?
on out.
Aye, aye, aye.